All right. Well, welcome everybody. This is the Their Story, Hear Their Story show at tHEiR Gallery. And these are the artists that participated in this group show. And I'm excited to have everybody here today to look a little bit more closely at the art, to talk a little bit about the idea of story with art and how we as artists sometimes work, sometimes don't, but how it was challenging or not, depending on the different artists and the different ways that we interact with our paint and with our subjects. So I will start with just going right to share my screen with a slideshow. And let's see, there we go. All right. All right, so the show, Their Story, Hear Their Story. And the idea was just that, that we all carry stories with us. And sometimes they end up, as artists, they end up in our paintings. And I love the idea of sometimes just painting to what's in my head, what's with my story, or what's with other people's stories when I'm painting other people's stories. And I thought it would be really interesting to introduce that to my artist friends that are creating amazing work. How is it that you paint? How is it that you might interact with a painting differently on reading their story? To me, it was sort of a social experiment too. So it's like, we'll talk about that later. But as far as how does the viewer interact with painting that has a story with it that may or may not be, a lot to do with the story, with the painting, but it somehow interacts and intersects. So our artists today are Colleen Scully, Joan Scully, Judith Westerfield, Barb Etzel, Lil Olive, Samantha Melvin, Ingrid Van Slyke, Valerie Samuel Henderson, Kate Ryan, and me, Renee. And this was what the story's about, basically. Everyone carries stories. We collect them, we wear them, we tuck them away in the depths of our coat pockets, living amongst the lint and its receipts. We hide them. We wander through life satisfied with the knowledge that nobody knows us completely. Nobody has heard all of our stories. This exhibit brings forth a sampling of these stories in word and paint, and in such a way that it isn't a full-out blathering or confessional autobiography, but rather a trepidatious unfolding, a peek into a bit of the story, an excerpt that will entice you to read more. Our hope is that when you leave here, you will carry our stories with you, that you will experience immeasurable growth from the compassionate act of understanding and carrying a stranger's story. We hope that this beckons you back to gather more time and again. So I'm just like take you quickly just through, like if you're walking through the door, you're going to go around. So I'll just go through a few of these quickly and then we'll address the paintings specifically. So here is the tHEiR Gallery in Santa Ana, California. And that's kind of the root of the show as people come in. And here's from the opening night, which was really fun. About 350 people came out for it, which was great, but slowly trickling, over the course of the night. This was the beginning of it, I believe. And I love watching people watch the art, watching people interact with it. And part of that experiment was just to see, is the story going to keep them longer? Are they going to jump between the story and the painting? Is it cause them to look again and look harder at the painting as they're trying to kind of meet the two things together somewhere? And so it was really interesting to see that. I think as a social experiment that it did work. I think people did linger longer. And they definitely read the stories. So seeing that, we will get right to it and start looking carefully at the different paintings on the wall. And this first artist, which I got some, because it's under glass, I wanted to get yours a little bit clearer, Samantha. And this is Samantha Melvin's work.
Yes. Yes, this piece is called Archways in the Garden. And first, actually, I want to thank you for having us, Renee, and being among all of the artists from the show. What a joy that is. This particular piece is called Archways in the Garden, and it is a monotype on Reeves BFK. So it is a printmaking process, actually using stencils. And I did this this piece in my studio at home, which has been a wonderful process to incorporate them and then also go larger. I'm a printmaker at Flatbed Press in Austin. And this particular work and the other one, The Verdant Web, came out of an experience where I actually went into an unknown space. And so it's part of the story, I think, that is so interesting about how we come to our work. In that I did an art residency workshop in Italy and tried a new approach in printmaking that I hadn't done before. And it really triggered so many things that I'd been working toward for a really long time. And it just seemed to cement in this process. And so in the process of using stencils, you're building up the ink on plexiglass and using, in this case, I'm using safe wash inks. So they're much better to use than other types of oil-based inks in the printmaking process. And I like that aspect of it. So they are water soluble. And I use an extender, which like a medium gives that translucency. And I'm really working at playing with that translucency. And what that is able to deliver, I feel, is this semblance of a overlapping landscape where nature is most definitely a part, and humans have made some type of imprint, but it's actually nature that is enveloping that space. And one of the interesting aspects of approaching this as a narrative is that a lot of work, I think, can be interpreted as a story, and it may not be what the artist originally intended. But when I thought about which pieces I wanted to send to the gallery, these two pieces really spoke about the possible narrative of an individual wandering through a space. And I'm really interested in that aspect of the spaces in between. That is where, for example, these archways, which can be interpreted as thresholds or gateways to another space, or an entrance to a shelter, for example, those all lead to new possibilities. And what I think is so powerful about nature is that it continues to evolve. And so in this process, I've tried to marry that through pattern and color and the printmaking process that is rather serendipitous, actually, in this way. But it was a wonderful way to approach the whole concept of story. So thank you.
Excellent. I just love these. I love looking at them every day I'm in here. And I love the titles you put to them. I wanted to address that because I made a different curatorial choice in that I didn't want to put titles this time. So your names are there, but I thought, you know what, I'm leaving the title off because I want there to be something with story, something with the other words that you wrote. So, but the titles do like give a clue into it too. And it's just like, oh my gosh, I could get lost in these. And yeah, definitely. So thank you. So we'll go next as we're going through the gallery. We're going to come to Kate Ryan's work.
Hi, Renee, thank you. It's interesting that you left the titles off. I like that, and everything that you're trying to do with causing people to stop and look and take a moment to consider the connections between the story, or what connections there, or triggers of ideas there might be for them. This piece I chose from a existing work that I had. I had actually called this piece Hidden, and so it kind of automatically came to me as a piece that I would include in this show. And so that was interesting that when you put this together, it sort of made me pause and consider perhaps what I had been kind of grappling with or considering when I had named the piece. And I wanted to just keep the writing simple, and I guess what I've been thinking about my painting is that it's kind of a moment in which to commune with oneself in the process of painting and kind of discovery. And so I am interested in like the inner landscape of the artist, and some of my work is kind of like a landscape, but I guess I wanted to draw a connection between the process of painting itself and kind of the parallels with continuing on with something, not knowing what the end result would be. And that's quite how I paint. I start just intuitively and just kind of build from there. I'm not sure what I'm going to get as a result. And so I just keep going with the feeling and kind of reacting and responding to things. And I think that's quite a similar way in which people go through life, really. So we don't really know what's going to come, but we just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And so my piece of writing, I don't have it in front of me, but it's very simple, very short, kind of I don't know if you could bring it
back to it. Yes. Let me just,
I can remind myself.
Hang on, it went away. I've got to
I think it's
get better at this. Let's see. Here we go.
No worry. Okay. Oh, there it is. Thank you.
There we go.
You just have to keep on going no matter what, and in the face of not knowing what the results will be. So just really simple. Yeah. That's kind of it, really. That's like an attitude, I suppose, or an approach. And I wanted to convey the kind of the hidden, I just thought it was interesting with you talking about hidden stories. Well, the process, the personal process that the artist goes through in making their work is never really, it's not really, I don't know if it's even relevant to anybody looking at the work, but it is a kind of hidden story behind the painting, and it's kind of in there, and the different thoughts and processes that they have that may have triggered them to, do a line. The artist might even not know why they did that anyway, but I just thought that's quite an interesting thing that I'm interested in. And so, yeah, I don't know if that comes across or if that's necessary.
I think it does. I mean, it definitely comes across, and just that, looking at it, and I've spent a lot of time looking at this one too, because like right across from my desk here, and just kind of going into some of the areas that feel like these transparent areas with the juxtaposed to the opaque, and going deeper in some spots. And that does feel like letting people into us a little bit, letting people have a little glimpse of our story, but we're wanting to know more when we're interacting with people. So that's sort of what I'm getting with it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I think that's right. There's like little moments that or vignettes within it. I think when I often look at other abstract paintings or representational paintings that kind of draw you in, lines that draw you around the space, and it's like having a conversation, I suppose. It sort of maybe prompts that, and I feel when I'm painting, it is like a conversational experience between what the painting kind of poses a question to me, perhaps like, how should I continue? How does this want to be completed? And it's similar for a viewer looking at a final piece. So it's almost like a hidden conversation that's, I don't know, not in words, but in pictures. So yeah, I really enjoyed thinking about that concept that you had there, Renee.
I love
And
it.
thank you. I've loved everyone's different approaches to the brief.
It is very fun. It's fun to see the abstract and then the and some of the other ones that are, you know, portrait based and things. So it's just
Yeah.
landscape. It's like we've got everything in here and it all makes sense. And it's all these ways of getting our story,
Yeah.
out, you know, in little,
100%.
yeah,
Mhm.
like personalities. So
Yes.
then we go back through the gallery and the next one coming is Lil's. Let me get, she has two pieces. Here they are side by side. I'll see if we can get a close up too, but the poem that you wrote, Lil, I just thought was really beautiful. Here.
My phone was ringing, so I muted it.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Thank you. And I actually got to go out there and I met a couple of you. My daughter lives in LA, so it was a great excuse for me to go visit her, and she accompanied me. And Renee's gallery is thoughtful and beautiful, and it was so rewarding to see everybody looking at the artwork and taking time with it. And it just was a wonderful experience. But my work stems from my deep love of nature and thinking about the sanctity of nature in today's environment of climate change and threats. And I'm looking at the earth almost as a female body. I'm coming from a place of sort of ecofeminism, and I'll read the poem and then we'll talk just a little bit more. The foot of man steps, a prelude to Dominion's march, with not one beat of a second thought, without even a bat of a soft green eyelash or a salty drop of an ocean tear. Eyes there only to witness my upheaval as I am reshaped and directed in ways I was never meant to go. Now comes my turn. I'm calling the shots, even if it might be too late. Still, I ask you to love me. I ask you to treat me right. The stories that I think might, a person might bring, or it might jog a thought or a spark of thinking about how society's structures or norms might impose on not only women, but any person, for them to identify in ways they weren't meant to be, or to live their lives or experience some things in their lives in ways that they might not naturally have gone into. Or so I'm thinking about like the development of land and comparing that to the female body, society's pressures. Sorry, my cat is society's pressures to look a certain way, to act a certain way. If you think about it, you know, you think about Mother Earth and nature, and it's very, very close to the female body and the feminine, and what mankind has done through history is not that far from what, you know, we have experienced as women in a lot of ways. I know in my own life, there have been times when I've been pushed into situations because I felt like it was expected of me. And I think about, like, what if I was just a seed that was in the soil and responded to the sunlight and could have developed into what I just naturally was meant to be, what would that be, you know? So I painted this painting first, just thinking about, the earth asking to be loved, and then the rose as a symbol. It's become commercialized, especially over Valentine's Day. The symbol of a rose now means something different than when it probably first appeared on Earth. And then the other image is a landscape that I have just turned vertically, and I placed the same roses there. And that landscape is just asking to be treated right. So I don't know, for the people that just, came up and looked at this, I don't know what it made them think of. I don't know if they related it back to the earth or not, or if it made them think about maybe a time in their life when they were not treated right or allowed to become what they wanted to become.
I
That's
think
what it,
being just a, fly on the wall as people come in is really interesting for me always to hear the conversations that come from a painting. And I do believe that that did translate for sure, because these are personal stories. So it wasn't just like, not just, but it was more than the, how do we care for our earth and things. It did, I think, become personal to people and into their own experience with being treated right. So I did hear some of that echo back to me. So it was really, I think it did come across. And it's so, there's so much more, than just that surface, right? There's so much, there's so much depth to it. And being in this women's space kind of idea of this gallery, the she, they gallery, that I believe that does come across, and the whole idea of Mother Earth. And your poem definitely linked it too, I think, as far as that, the writing and going back and forth. So it's just a lot of depth here, and a lot of story and things that people could carry with them and could relate to.
I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, now that's one of my favorite parts of having this gallery, is just that, seeing people's responses and listening to the conversations. I like to get in the conversations, but I also like to just be quiet and stand back and hear them as they progress. But yeah, thank you.
And that's I think the ultimate, thing that artists strive for is just communication, having communication with other people through their art. Yeah.
And when it works, it's like, oh, hooray. I mean, you just want to cry. At least I do. I really do. I just get all teary. It's like, yes, they hear me. That's what this story, this whole show is about. Hear it. Here are the stories. So thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think Judy's come in yet.
Not yet.
Okay, so we're gonna skip past hers, but those are next in the gallery. And then we're going to come around the corner to Valerie's. And I have, let's sync that down. I've got the words as well. So this is Valerie Samuel Henderson. Are you here? I think.
Yes, I am.
There you are.
Thank you.
We're just like your words, your name on there, not your face. Yay, you're back.
And Renee, thank you so much for doing this. I think having this dialogue with women artists together is really, it's wonderful, and it's powerful, and yeah, and I'm so happy to be part of it. So anyway, and this opportunity to put together words and images, because it's something that I'm working with and trying to find ways that are kind of my own unique take on, um, uh, well, the piece that's here is, I I work a lot with geometric forms, squares and circles, and then overlay with gesture and looseness, and so there's this kind of interaction between the structure and kind of flowing water and accident and imposing uh, straight lines, and so and then this is layered with uh, pieces of silk that are collaged, and the green on there, and so I've been incorporating different kinds of silk fabrics into my work, and I love the the quality of how they kind of they'll meld into the paper with acrylic medium, and just it's just this wonderful layering process. um, and so I think a lot about gardens, and I have this theme about a woman finding a path through the forest. um, and so I'm also a writer, a poet, and I had actually this being invited to participate in this show was just the catalyst I needed to finish a poem that I had started, I think maybe in September, and then I put it down, and then I picked it up again in November, and then I didn't know where I wanted to go with it. And then somehow when Renee said, "Yeah, you want to be in this show and write something," and I'm like, "Oh, right." And then it came together, that phenomenon. It's so exciting. And this my question: how do you cultivate an unyielding spirit? And that, like, I continual process of learning how to do that and live in that way. What is an unyielding spirit? And I've been thinking about, I heard um, an interview about a book, thinking about Nelson Mandela, such an amazing figure. And, the impossibility of, I mean, I can't even understand how one could endure that kind of, suffering and imprisonment, and keep a vision and come out with the spirit to really, with a heart to really contribute, to peace and you know, to human beings. So uh, I really appreciate having this opportunity, and sort of in my ongoing work, I'm really exploring uh, the way that I can, have this. What came to mind just now was like a dance. It's an interaction between, an artwork and a poem. And it's not that, oh, this describes that. No, it's an interactive, putting the phenomenon of putting, one element in relation to something that um, is different and has a different characteristic, but through the process, it creates a space and a vision. And so
That's
yeah, I this is really helpful, and I'm excited. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm curious. I love it's such a beautiful little jewel of a painting. And I was curious, and I meant to ask because I think when you brought it in, it was still somewhat wet. So did you do the writing and then the painting came from that writing? Is that correct? Or
No, actually, I had this. Well, I have like lots and lots of, pieces that were maybe that I had done in the last few years, and some of them like don't quite work, and I set them aside. And sometimes I want to go back and rework it until I'm done, until I feel like I'm excited and it's finished. And so there was this interaction of that process, and I found this collage that I wasn't satisfied with. And then thinking about, the writing and my image of a woman seeking a path through the forest. And I think that stimulated me to be able to finish this piece with
okay.
like another layer of silk. Yeah.
Okay. Nice, really nice. I love that interplay of it and what you said about it being a dance too. That's what I think so much of art is, because we've got all these thoughts. We've got these thoughts of the book that you heard about Nelson Mandela, and these things are echoing in our brains sometimes when we're at the easel, and it's like, and this is what comes